Welcome back, guys, to another episode of this video. Today we'll be talking about variable. But before we start, let's make a recap of what we did in the last video. In the last video we talked about data types, and we said data types describe the kind of value a variable holds or a variable can hold. What does that mean? So these are the kind of value a variable can hold. That is, we have string, that is any value in a double quote is a string, and we have number, that's 1, 3, and we have different numbers. These are floating numbers that has decimal point. We have boolean, which return true or false, and we have undefined, as empty values. So in this video today we'll be talking about variables. So let's start by understanding what variable is. What is a variable? A variable is like a container that holds or store information or data. What does that mean? Okay, let me declare a variable for you to see first. You can say var, then the name of the variable. Let me call this project, and the value of the variable, I can just call it hello world. So, oops, sorry, I made a mistake here. Var project equal to hello world. So I say okay, I said a variable is like a container that stores information or data. What does that mean? Okay, this var that I declared is just like a container. Okay, just imagine different containers that has item in it. So in order for you to be able to identify what's inside, you really have to give it a label or a name for you to identify them. So that's exactly how a variable works. When we create a variable, that means we are creating it to store something, to store an item inside, information or data. So by calling var, we are telling JavaScript that I'm declaring a variable, and here we are giving it a name. Then we use this equal sign to tell it that this is the value we are storing inside the variables. And we have different way of declaring a variable. We have the var, we have let, and we have constant. Oops. Let, then constant. What's the difference between these three? This var is just like the old way of declaring a variable, unlike what I said in the previous video. It's just like the old way of declaring a variable, but now in any code you see, when they are declaring a variable in JavaScript, they usually use let. And when we declare a variable, one thing with variable is that we can reassign it, both let or var. We can reassign it. What does that mean? What do we mean by we can reassign it? That means we can change this value that is in it. The value of this variable, we can change it. But let me first print the output of this variable first. Yeah, just say log then we call project. As you can see, I'm printing the output of this variable. That is the value of this variable. This is the output. I'm printing hello world. So I'm telling it that what I'm doing here is that I'm telling it that it should give me the output. That's the value of this variable. So I said we can change the value of this variable. How does that mean? We can change, that means we can change it without touching this. How do we do that? Just come down here, call the name of the variable. We call the name of the variable, give it an equal sign, and give it a new variable in it. So by the time I do console.log for me to get the value of this variable, instead of getting hello world, I'll be getting this number, that's 33. So let's try and get the output and see. Let me put it in a variable. I wanted to show you something, but let me just put it in a variable first. Let me just call it let. Then we call it reassign. Okay, let me just call it 3 equal to project. I don't want it to belong. So instead of calling this project, since I've already reassigned it here. So what will I do? I'll just call this variable. So while calling this variable means I'm calling this variable in this line here. So let's try it and see. I'm reassigning, that means I'm changing the value of this variable. I'm changing this hello world to 33 to this number here, but I won't be touching it. Let me just print it for you to see. Let me call it RE. Then let me clear this output for you to see. Out. As you can see, the value has changed. It has changed to 33. I can even put this as a double quote. Just put it as a double quote. So automatic now, I'm putting this 33. What I'm trying to do here is that I'm replacing this 33 to what was in this double quote before. And as this double quote is empty, it means that I'm putting this 33 inside. So let me call it again for you to see. This 33. As you can see, I've changed. Now I'm reassigning the value of this variable without touching it, without touching what was inside before. So what are the rules? How can we name a variable? There are different ways of naming a variable. In most cases, when you are naming a variable, you name it, you give it a name, a unique name, so that whenever you want to reassign it or you want to reuse it, because we can reuse variables. So in order for you to reuse it, you really understand it. Okay, let's imagine I'm creating an e-commerce website. Yes, I'm creating an e-commerce website with multiple items inside. So I can just call this like. So instead of like, for me to call it a name that I won't understand, I can just call it like item. So that by the time I want to reassign it or I want to use it, I will know that this is the name of the variable I'm using it, because we'll be creating, you might be having multiple variable in your project. So you just give it a name, a unique name that will make you to understand. Like item, then I'll just store what I want to put inside. And another rules of setting a variable is you give it a camel case. Maybe you want to give it a multiple name. Let's say maybe I want to change item, the cart. Maybe I want to remove it. So maybe I want to do add to cart, then remove from cart. So what we mean by camel case is this. Let me just type it for you so that you see it before I explain it. Check this out. Let me say, okay, add to cart. So how does this become a camel case? Because these are combination of multiple words. combination of multiple words. So in order for me to be able to understand it, I have to use camel case. So the first number here, the first letter here will be lowercase. Then the next word that follows it, the first one will be uppercase, and the next word too will be uppercase. That's just the rule of creating a camel case name. Yes, I give it a name. So in order for me to understand what's inside, or even though someone else wants to read my code, this is how we give it camel case in order for it to not get confused, or even though someone else wants to try and read your code, at least you make it easier for them, even for you as a developer, because there are some times that you might have bug in your code. So by the time you are debugging, when you give it just random name that you really don't understand, at least you get confused. But when you give it a name that you really understand, that yes, this is where it's coming from, then you understand, then you know where the variable is coming from. And now we've talked about var and let. We're talking about constant. Let's talk about constant now. What do you mean by constant? The difference between var, let, and constant is that they all work the same way, but the only difference they have is that by using constant, you can't reassign it. Anything you put inside, any value you put inside, that's it. You can't reassign it. It can't be changed. When you try to change it, it will throw an error for you. Okay. So now let me declare a variable with constant. Let me just clear this off. Then I'll say const. So constant, let me name it project equal to, let me say hello world. So let me try and reassign it by saying project equal to, okay, since I've already used the name hello world before, let me use JavaScript. Since we're learning JavaScript. So now I want to reassign JavaScript to Java. Let me change it to Java. What I wanted to show you earlier is that when you are logging, when you want to get the output, this console.log, I can really put this into that console.log. No, that's for me, because by getting multiple lines of code, we really don't like it in our code. So I just have to change this. Let me just put this and say log. It's not advisable to be having multiple lines of code. You have to make it more smaller for you, so that in order for you to debug it, or because when you're having multiple lines of code, it might really cause a bug. So let me just say console.log and reassign it inside. When I save this, let me just clear this and see. So now I just call the variable here, that is the container, and this is the container, and this is the label on the container, that is the name, and this is what is inside the container. That's just how variable work. Now I'm trying to change it by calling it. I'm trying to change it by calling this variable here. I want to change this value to this, the value JavaScript. I want to change it to Java. So let's see. As you can see, it gave me an error. It's a type error, assignment to constant variable. Let's check this out on Google Chrome and see what it's going to tell us. As you can see, type error, assignment to constant variable. What is it telling us? The type error assignment to constant variable occurs in JavaScript when attempts to reassign a value to a variable Let me read that again. When attempt to reassign a value to a variable declared with the name constant. I'm just reading this for you in such a way that you understand. With the constant keyword variable declared with constant, so you understand. Just if you read it, you understand. That's exactly how constant works. So they all work in the same way, but the only time we can reassign constant is by, let me just comment this out, is when we use object or array. In the next video I'll be talking about objects and array, because I was supposed to talk about it in the previous video, that's data type, but I just want to make it a special video because it will take a much long time for you to understand. So that's the reason. You can just call it constant. This is how if by declaring an array, we open these two brackets and give it something like, let's see, man. Oops. Constant array equal to, and just call it as, let me say, man. So for the mistake I made earlier, I'll call this man. Let me put this in a string in the middle. Oh, this is how we write array. So in the next video I'll show you how we can, when we're talking about array and object, I'll show you how we can reassign it by using, how we can reassign constant, because I really don't want this video to be long, so I'll just put it to an end here. So in the next video we'll be talking about array and constant, array and object, we're talking about array and objects, how they can be used and what they are used for, because they also store information. Because in this video we're just talking about variables, we said it's like a container storing information. So by calling this like this, okay, this array now that I just declare here, this is like a container holding this information here, and this information is still holding another information in it. So I really don't want you to get confused. That's why I just want to make it a separate video. So don't forget to click the like and subscribe button, guys, so that whenever I drop a new video, you'll get notified. So let's get to the next video. Let's talk about array and objects. Thank you, guys.